Hello, everybody. Welcome to another evening of Analogue Television. Hopefully my microphone is working, which it should be. We have a lot of excitement today because not only do we have, backed by popular demand, Marina stepping in as co-host, we also have someone that you may know as Little Vintage Photography, as someone from Sunny 16, an author on Petapixel, an artist in residence in Liverpool, or Rachel. Hello and welcome, everybody. How are you doing?
Hi, good, thank you. It's so nice to actually be here, be with you guys, see Marina. I was going to say in the flesh, but not really, face to face at least.
Close enough.
Awesome. Yes, yeah.
Close enough, because you guys have not, so you have never done walks together. You're both in the same area.
Nope.
We're other end of the country, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So far we've not had chance to actually, meet in person.
Not yet.
But 2020 is only halfway over, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Next year will be absolutely brilliant. Okay, so as always, we've had questions that have come in from people beforehand that we have collected. We've got some fantastic people dialing in, by the way, already. We've got Sam individually saying hello to each of us. Hello, Sam. That's Solar Clan Sam.
Hello.
Andre Dominguez from his lunch break in Cinestill. Oh my God.
Whoa.
We've broken America, guys. That's how big this has got.
Actually, hold on one moment. I'm going to just bring it over here because I happen to have it sitting here.
Oh.
Whoa. Oh, here we go. Look at this, Andre. Some specific Cinestill.
This is Andre's Cinestill mono bath, and actually purchased from Analogue Wonderland. There you go.
Wow, you are very on brand. If only Marina had helped you do it, then would be everyone involved. Okay, so we'll do a live monobath review of Andre's product next week. So as always, we've got questions from you guys. We've got questions ourselves. There's a quiz that Marina has worked on.
Yeah.
We've got things to go through.
And I have no mercy.
There is a giveaway. I was meant to get them ready. They're somewhere around. 2 8x35mm rolls of film that we will talk about as well in a little bit. And a challenge, an opportunity for people to win that, which is great. We forgot to actually finalise what that was going to be, so we'll make it up on the fly. Not a problem. So, enough from me. The reason everyone's here, Rachel. So, Little Vintage Photography is a business that captures weddings. It captures, you've done portrait sessions, you've done couple sessions, you've done a lot of teaching and courses. Tell us a little bit about how it came to be.
So I set up Little Vintage Photography about 5 years ago now, which seems crazy that the time has just disappeared. It kind of came about because out of necessity, really. Unfortunately, I'd lost my mum, and I'd also lost my job because I ended up getting made redundant. Everything kind of felt like it was collapsing in a little bit in my world at that point. And I decided to take a day off work, and I sat down with a pen and paper, and I just literally wrote out all the sorts of things that I knew that I loved, that I didn't enjoy. It was a kind of, I know it's much of a cliche, but it was very much like forward from here. And I just tried to go back to the kind of like idea of what is it that makes me happy, and what is it that I can bring to other people to make them happy as well, hopefully. So I ended up, it's weird that it sort of took me so long to, was sort of like thinking about going back to the darkroom, working with my hands, doing sort of like actually making art, teaching, sharing that like enjoyment and that passion with other people. And that was kind of what brought me back to Analogue, really. I knew that I needed to kind of take a step back, slow down a little bit, and use film photography to deal with my grief as well. It was a really big part of trying to kind of like work out what the new version of my life was going to be from there. And because obviously I was about to be made redundant, I didn't have a job. So I'd been all my life I've worked sort of freelance as well as having like a job, and so I thought, well, I might as well just kind of it wasn't so much a leap of faith, more of a jump off the edge of a cliff kind of thing, but
Yeah.
you know, it had to happen, so I just thought,
was
right,
meant
well,
to be. Yeah.
I'm gonna go for it. So
Yeah.
that's how it kind of like started, really, and it just sort of grew organically from there. I did try and do all the things that you're supposed to do, like, you know, write the business plan and figure out, you know, who my audience are, and it didn't go, you know, it didn't actually work out like that in reality. So in reality, it was what feels right, I think, was actually what I went for. And yeah, like I say, it kind of like just grew organically from there. So yeah.
I saw Marina nodding quite heavily, I think, to that.
Sorry, yeah, it's just I couldn't be more agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you made a jump to, if Rachel's sort of 5 years down the line, you're not even 5 months, or about 5 months since you decided to make If We Film a major part of your business. And again, you've matched freelancing with your day job.
Well,
right?
I started to do If We Film 2 years ago on the August 28th.
Time disappears, though, doesn't it? You're like, how was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, I know. But you know, I was doing also my full-time job in a lab, and I was trying to do both things. So yeah, but yeah, this year actually was the year that I was thinking like, okay, this is the end. I'm going to do it. Yeah, and yeah, but yeah, I couldn't be more agree with you. Like a business plan is just bullshit.
I think that thing of writing down things that make you happy from a life, and then looking at what a business can be, I think is brilliant. Because a business plan, you start to look at what's the biggest market available, or you know, what are the numbers, what's the profit margin on this product, whereas you're saying that's not what you began.
Well, it's just, I'm not saying that's wrong. That's a very good way of running a business and making a successful business. It's just not me, I think. And I would rather be led by what can I do to be creating and to be sharing. And that was my motivation and my mission, I suppose, if you like, behind it, rather than, you know, and hopefully making it into a viable business as I went, sort of thing, was the idea. Yeah. Obviously I say obviously, sorry, not everybody knows. My background is in education, and sort of like from the technical side of things as well. So I originally used to run the technical department at the university in Liverpool.
Okay.
So when I finished university, actually I was very lucky, because I was sort of the first person from my family to go to uni and what have you. And I went and did a sort of like media production degree. And I was very fortunate in that the technician was a woman as well on the course. And there was very much a case of, oh, well, the boys are going to be editing, the men are going to be editing. And I was like, hang on a minute, I don't think so, guys. I was like, I would love to learn how to do that. So I ended up staying in Liverpool over the summer when everybody else went home, and just taught myself how to like basically build an edit suite and edit, so that when they came back, I was like, here you go, I can do it. Ta-da! Pretty good friend. Brilliant. So I quite enjoyed that. It was a bit like feeling like I had a sudden superpower, you know, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, so it kind of went from there really. When the technician left, I applied for the job, and so I ended up working sort of in sort of scrabbling around under desks, plugging in edit suites and you know, that kind of thing originally. But I always loved teaching students as well, you know, showing them how to, and it was fascinating seeing how you can take the same image or the same footage and make something completely different from it. You know, each person would see it in that slightly different way, or each group would create something different from the raw material. And I think that's something that I just still love, like that idea of how you tell a story, you know, whether that's moving image or still image or what have you, and the sort of like perspective from individuals is so different and fascinating. So I just kind of wanted to combine that and help other people tell those stories as well, I think.
And
so
was
that's
it,
why
when you did that work and you said, so I've seen several people have mentioned already, it's very inspiring, it's not a cliche, it's brave. and a brilliant journey. I think there's a lot of people, I think, who, if they haven't done it already, might be doing this piece of exercise after we finish. When you did that, was it obvious that an analog photography business was what you wanted to do, or was it like, was there a path, was there a choice? How clear did it become?
I think it was, well, I literally remember sitting there with the notebook and writing all these things out, and I got to about 11 o'clock at night, and it was like one of those, like, oh, that and this, and it was like, ta-da, and it all kind of like came together.
Yeah.
Like little, and I think it was because it was almost like a part of me is a bit of like to rebel against the fact that everything was so digital and everything was so like fast paced and everything had to be, pixel perfect, and it was all about who's got the biggest lens and the best megapixels, and I was just like, it's not about that, it's about the story, it's about the emotion. Exactly. It's about crafting something by hand. I've always loved heritage side of things. I've always loved old things, antiques, anything like that. It's always sort of drawn me to it, and I thought, well, how can I combine all of these things that I find really fascinating? And it was going back to the darkroom, and it was going back to analog film, and it was slowing down and going, okay, well, it's 12 frames on a medium format roll, or it's a single shot, or even if it's 36, it helped me to stop really a little bit and take a bit of a step back. So I thought maybe there's other people who kind of want to look at this as well. Maybe a few of us are getting a bit tired of always feeling like you've got to take thousands of photos, to be a good photographer. I don't know. So that was kind of what led me back to analog, because it was craft based, I guess. Yeah.
No, but where did you get all the darkroom techniques? Where did you learn all the darkroom techniques? Is it because you learn yourself, or you just went to a class? Or?
My dad was in the RAF, in the RAF, the Royal Air Force, and so when I was very little, he was already learning the trade in there. So when I was about 3, he was like, okay, this is how you make a camera. So yeah, he was like, right, pinhole, and it basically showed me how to like make a camera, and I made this first photograph, and my mum wrote on the back of it, actually, I haven't been able to find it. I've asked my dad to look for it. I'm not sure where it is, but she wrote on the back, Rachel's first photograph, age 3, and it's this photograph of a feather, and I remember being in the little tiny like box bedroom with my dad, and him sort of like and him going, no, we've got to switch these lights off, but we can keep the red one on, like night light kind of thing. And then processing it. So I do distinctly remember that feeling. I couldn't tell you what the room looked like or anything, but I remember the feeling of that, being quite all kind of like quiet and sort of like safe and kind of just lovely, really. And then there being this image afterwards, I was like, it's magic. I mean, that's as close to magic as we can get, I think, really. So yeah, it was just awesome. And so after that, I didn't really do, a lot with it. Obviously, at 3, I wasn't kind of thinking, oh, what's my career going to be?
I was about to think, my nephew's about to turn 3, and I'm not sure I naturally think now is the time to teach him about red light, like safe lighting.
But yeah, so maybe I'm just weird like that, I don't know. But yeah, so I didn't really do anything else with it at that point, but it was always kind of like around, and then I went to art college, and they the course basically closed down, and there was only me left on the course.
Closed down.
Okay. Because there weren't enough people taking the course. So we'd started with like a normal amount of people on the course, and then by the sort of like end of the first semester, half had gone, and by the time we came back after like Christmas, the other half had gone, and there was just like me left. So we're like, well, we're gonna have to shut the course. And I remember my mum going up being like, no, you're not shutting the course, because she's already done like half a year. And so in the end, I ended up writing my own curriculum and basically just taught myself. So I would write the sort of like parameters and the curriculum, and then take them to somebody at the college and be like, can I do this? And they go, yeah, that fits in the grid. Okay, tick, 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 off you go. So I just went and did it.
Wow.
So basically just taught myself and what have you. And part of that was also working in the Darkroom, and I did my A level there as well and what have you. So that was kind of how it kind of came about in a way. As sort of like difficult as it was, and obviously teamwork was a bit of a difficult concept to kind of like I was like, how am I going to do this on my own? But in the end, it was actually it was probably like one of the best things that happened, because at like 15, you know, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to just teach myself. 16, I'm going to just have to do this. So I think
that was a really good thing for you. Like, okay, I'm going to learn by myself.
You know? Yeah. And sort of like speak to people I never would have normally spoken to, like the public, and you know, kind of like approach people.
And that whole working out what success looks like before you then have to do it, like creating parameters that fulfills a goal before you do it. That's the rest of life.
Yeah, and it's not always taught in education like that, is it? Sometimes, in a way, that's more of a fall off the end of a cliff when you get to suddenly the real world, and it's like, ooh. So yeah, as it wasn't ideal, obviously, but it led to, you know, these kinds of things, and I guess that you kind of go, well, I made that work somehow. We'll figure it out as we go along, sort of thing. So, you know.
No, that's brilliant. And then when you got to the point where you said, you know, an analog photography business, the craft, the education, that's where my heart is. That's what I enjoy doing. Obviously, there's a few different ways of, you know, making money out of that. And you've got a few strands, and you presumably haven't gone down a few. Did you then sort of take an approach of trying a few different things and seeing what happened, or did you again use the same technique to say, what do I enjoy? Well, I enjoy being at weddings. That makes sense. But what's the methodology that said these are the 3 or 4 things I'll focus on, and I'm not going to do the rest?
Honestly, it's changed over time as well. It's kind of like grown, and I mean, I think most people who have some kind of like creative aspect of their personality feel like this, but it's like there's a billion tabs happening, you know, all at once. There's all these ideas, and there's just never enough time. There's just not. You know, if you lived for 1,000 years, there wouldn't be enough time to do all of the things that you want to do, and ideas and what have you. I think that's my biggest struggle. I really struggle with kind of going, there's so much I want to do. I know I'll never be able to do all of this. So what do I choose? And I find that is the main thing that I have to watch myself on, because I get distracted easily by that. I've got to do this, and this is just like the best thing, and I'm just so excited about that. And it doesn't mean that I lose the excitement for that, but it's really exciting. So how do I choose? So the simple answer is I don't know. I just kind of like various things have kind of come up that made more sense, you know, things that where I'd sort of like discovered the when I say I've discovered the cyanotype process, I don't mean I literally discovered the cyanotype process, obviously. That happened a good 20 years before. But I discovered it for me, you know, so to me it was new, and to me it was like, this is incredible, and I still absolutely love it and use it all the time. But it was one of those things that I kind of stumbled across and went, oh yeah, this is brilliant, and how can I interpret that into various different projects, or what can I do with that? Is that like artist commissions, or is it approaching schools, or is it developing a, you know, workshop and delivering that? You know, so really what I kind of, it's weird like looking back, but I think I started really from the I just want to refresh my memory on how do I shoot with film, how do I process, blah blah blah, you know, and just kind of get myself back to a basic level. And then it was like, okay, well actually maybe it's going and figuring out how to develop and design a kind of curriculum and do workshops, and then go, okay, now I need to promote these to people to see if other people are interested in trying something a bit different, trying something new, giving them a different, you know, if they're a photographer, a digital photographer, sometimes you find that they're just a bit stuck in a rut and they want to try something different. So I think that's kind of where I ended up starting from, going into the workshop side of things. And I just loved that. But as with anything, it's you know, like I said, there was always 100 other ideas going on at the same time, and I was like, well, actually, weddings is a beautiful like thing to be able to capture, you know, to be able to capture those little moments. But I wanted there to be something as an alternative for people who didn't want just the picture perfect pixels, you know, and it was all so perfect. I was like, life's not perfect, you know. It's like, that's why I love Analogue. It gives you that opportunity to capture something a bit different. And yes, it's scary and it's stressful and all those other things, obviously. I shoot very much as a hybrid photographer. You know, I'm always very upfront about that, because there is an expectation these days that there's going to be a certain amount of images, which is totally fine, you know. And I also am a bit of a worrier, for anybody who doesn't know me, or probably anybody who does know me. I'm a worrier, so I like to make sure that there is that covered, and that I'm doing the best job that I possibly can. But I wanted to bring in this other aspect to it as well, and just to kind of like make something really handmade and super special and really unique. And I was like, if I can give that gift to somebody, you know, then, you know, that's all the better, really. So yeah, like you said, Paul, you know, in terms of my business, sort of diversified as much as I can to kind of like, what are the things that really make me like excited about this, or oh yeah, I could capture this for somebody, or I could deliver that in some way, or I can work on how I structure a workshop and somebody can go home with some new skills or something, you know. So yeah.
And I mean, I first came across you through Sunny 16, and I think that's probably true for quite a few people. I mean, we've had Cheryl Lee's commented and actually said that you were the first film wedding photographer account she followed, and that's how she sort of come to know.
Who is that? Sorry.
That was Cheryl Lee, who's
Oh yeah.
which is
I
lovely.
was realising if we're talking about Sunny 16, maybe it's time for the beer.
Yes, please, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers.
Sure, we'll open the beer.
All right, now I'm on the beer.
We'll continue.
Okay.
Yes, you've moved from tea to beer now. Yeah, so you've had that sort of the Sunny 16 background as well. You've been involved with the film side on that part. As you say, you've done the courses. And it's interesting when you talk about the fact, you know, you've got all these things going around, and it almost sounds as though you almost wish that wasn't true. But I mean, it makes it brilliant because it makes you well-rounded. And when I started this, you know, the things that you've achieved just in the last, month, you know, you're part of the Ilford's Darkroom series. And you know, I had somebody on Instagram when I put out
You
a
have
question.
to watch it, guys, by the way. Please.
Sorry, Marina, what was that?
No, you have to watch it, by the way. Like,
Yes, if anyone hasn't watched it, I mean, bear in mind, when I put out the questions, like, any questions for Rachel, someone just wrote, I absolutely love her YouTube series with Ilford. Not a question at all. Just wrote it and thought, and I was like, there we go. So, you know, you've been asked by Ilford to teach Darkroom things on their YouTube channel, which is slightly bigger than our YouTube channel. You know,
you guys had them on last week.
That is true. You know. That is true.
Exactly.
And you've also been featured in Petapixel recently with your pinhole work. You've done artist residencies. You've got grant funding. You do the courses. So it does seem as though you have a more, I hate to use the word because it sounds really businessy, but a holistic view, an all-rounder view of film photography. That people who really laser focus on one thing might sort of get there faster, but after 5 years, you're at the stage where you're being invited into these conversations all around, which must be quite, hopefully quite rewarding.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird, isn't it? Because I was like, what have I achieved in the last month? When you just said that, and I was like, oh my god, what? I don't know what it is.
But that's even like that's the things that I saw, and then you mentioned the Loma Women article. Marina mentioned something else in the build-up, like, and I'm sure people in comments will have been like, "You've totally forgotten this part as well," you know. And I'm sure when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that. But taking a step back or thinking from the outside.
Yeah, it doesn't really, as in, you just kind of, you're there creating, doing what you're doing, and hoping that other people are enjoying it too, I suppose. And it's a funny one, isn't it? Like when you're forced to kind of like sit and it makes me feel so awkward, like you just sort of like telling me like, so you do this, and I'm like, oh god, how do I respond to that?
Well, someone has to, to say these things to you, because sometimes like work hard on things and you forget about what you have achieved so far. So yes, well done, well deserved.
Thank you very much, Marina.
and also, this isn't because you're not here because, well, I mean, we're friends obviously, and always love spending time with you. Don't get me wrong, but again, the weekend when I put out who do people want on this, you came up 2 or 3 times on this straight away. So you do have a standing with the community where people see everything you're doing and are very envious, I think, as well. I mean, again, I'm sure it's very stressful. I'm sure there's lots of late nights and we haven't talked about the financial side and about whether you're making millions or billions from your business yet. But
I mean, obs.
But I think that ability to immerse yourself in something you love, that's what comes through, I think, in everything you do. You don't sound like somebody who's stressed by work in a corporate sense, put it that way.
No, that would bring me no joy, I have to say. It would bring me no,
Exactly. What would it be the point? I mean,
exactly. What's the point in that, really? I mean, I have to say, it definitely makes sense. Like, I look at it and I go, God, I wish I'd listened to my mum when she said do an engineering degree first, because it would have meant that I got to the point where I would have still come back to the same point, because there's a lot of engineering, and I love, actually, I never really thought of myself like that. And I'm not an engineer by any stretch. But there are aspects of what I do that do incorporate that, kind of like from the STEM side of things, sort of introducing at least young children to, engineering and maths and, the various different sciences that are included in analog photography. It was only on reflection that I realized that there is aspects of that, and kind of always sort of like taking things apart and putting them back together, or not quite getting the time to put them back together.
Hey, we've all been there. We are all there right now. Yes.
Oh God, my ongoing Hasselblad back that I bought years ago now, and I was like, oh, I'll take this apart. This will be fun. No.
I mean, can I also just say, like, I was lucky enough to be hosted by Rach and her husband and dog when I went to Tilford a few months ago. And walking around your house is like a treasure trove of amazing mechanical objects. Like, I think there was a typewriter in the room that I stayed in. Like,
really?
You're like, oh, that's the typewriter. I'm like, it's a beautiful, and I can see right there in the background how many cameras are there.
One.
Oh yeah, these are my box ones. Yeah,
the brownie. Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think it's we all have different reasons why we shoot film, and the ones that come up fairly frequently. But the sort of the hands-on aspect is always feels like quite a thing. It's interesting that you talk about that sort of maybe having a mathematical or trained approach to some of that might help. I mean, I sit here with a physics degree. And I'm one of the least useful people at putting back together the cameras. So read into that what you will.
I was more meaning like if I'd have gone and done that, it could have meant I'd have got a nicely paid job, shall we say? A pretty sort of like stable career in a certain sense, and then been able to make.
Maybe not. Maybe you could feel very comfortable in your zone and you wouldn't do this. So I think it was meant to be.
Thank you, Marina. This is possibly true. People said that because I had to save up to go to uni, because obviously I couldn't afford to go straight away. And so I was like, right, okay, obviously, got a job, worked for an extra year or so when everybody else had sort of like gone off and stuff. And they were like, oh, you're going to get too comfortable, having a wage coming in, from Tesco and what have you. And I was like, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do it. It will happen. It might be a little bit later than everybody else, so I'll get there, but it might just, tortoise and hare kind of thing.
No, definitely. We've had a question come in. Do you do talks about women in STEM or women who wish they had gone into STEM?
Yeah, and excuse me. I did quite a lot of work with an organisation called Innovate Her, and they did they were originally Liverpool Girl Geeks, and in terms of like the Twitter kind of like community and people I follow, a lot of that is sort of like women in STEM and people who are helping to kind of like push that forward. I'm always up for something like that. I love to champion having women going into traditional gender roles, shall we say, or in whatever way you want to say it. But I think it's just important to have that balance. I mean, why wouldn't we have the balance? What is there to gain by there being a massive imbalance in that? There's nothing to gain in that.
True.
And I think one of the things that really sticks in my mind was I did a workshop with a group of primary school kids. So they were like 7, 8 years old. And I went into the primary school, and these are kids that were in a slightly more sort of like deprived area in whatever way, I don't know how we're supposed to say that. But basically they didn't have, the same kind of like aspirations. And they wanted to bring in people to kind of like show them what are the roles and what are the kind of like, ideas of careers that were out there, things that they might not have come across up to that point. And at the end of it, one of the girls came over and said, "Are you an artist or a scientist?" And I was like, that's amazing. I was like, I'm both, right? You can be both. Of course you can be both. And you can be a woman, and that's all good, So it was just the loveliest, like, I don't know, moment, because I realised that, she suddenly saw herself that she could do that. And it's all about being visible, isn't it? And it's all about, the more you put your head over the parapet, the more likely you are to get shot down and all of that. But
especially on the internet.
Well, exactly. It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? And I think we just have to like hang on to that little moment of, it might actually help somebody feel a bit better about themselves, or, take on something that they'd never even considered before. So, and that's got to be a good thing.
No, definitely. And you've written for Lomography, I think, with Lomo Women article. You both actually did some wrote for Analogue Wonderland around International Women's Day.
That's right.
Women in film at the moment, and sort of the it's not the perception, it's the reality. I put out that thing at the weekend that said, who do people want to see on this show? And I think 8 out of 10 names were men. Everyone was fantastic. Like, that's not the point, but there's clearly still an imbalance between the visibility and not. What's your view? Well, both of you. What are your views at the moment? Where's that coming from? How can it change? What can people do?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I don't know the reason, because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there are many people, many analog film photographers out there, but I'm not sure what's the reason that, for example, like, the male YouTubers are more famous or popular than women. Why? I really don't know the reason. What do you think, Rachel? What do you think?
I'm sorry. I realised that. I think there is. I think it does sometimes come down to a question of confidence as well. Like I mentioned before, that idea of, if you put yourself forward, you're more likely to get a lot of stuff coming back at you, right? So if you can just be there under the radar, just sort of doing your thing, but not talking about it or mentioning it or what have you, you're not. There's less chance of being attacked, I guess, right? There's an extra level of that's a possibility, and I think maybe it's just, I don't know, like it feels quite difficult to shout about what you do, and I don't know if that's a cliche, I don't know if that is like across the board, but to actually kind of go, oh look, I've done this thing, and just kind of like put it out there without really second, third, fourth guessing it the whole time, because there's a lot of energy gets wasted in that, I think. And sometimes you get to the point where you're like, I'm just not going to do it anyway because you think, all the time you're kind of thinking, well, how's that going to be perceived? What people are going to say about me? Or, should I do that? Is it any good?
Thinking about that when you're doing the Sunny 16 podcast? Do you feel that you've been like judged by somehow, or do you have any worries about that?
I mean, obviously there are some aspects to that, but the absolute like overwhelming majority is so positive, and it's been one of the absolute like most wonderful parts of my life. I never even expected it to be, you know. And the community as a whole are just fantastic. They really are, and so warm, welcoming, and supportive. Like, everybody does give each other like a leg up and a push, you know. And that's so important. So the vast majority is that. I think it's more of an inherent perhaps lack of confidence in work on a more general level, shall we say. Perhaps that's why. I set up like a little Facebook group, which is awesome female photographers, just to kind of like give a space on.
Sorry, so
on
that's not film specific. That's awesome female photographers.
That's right.
Yes.
A lot of women in there do seem to be analog photographers, or hybrid photographers as well. I'd say probably most are, but there are some digital only as well. And it's just been, I wanted to set that up as like a space that would feel a bit safer, away from, you know, unsolicited advice. Like, if you want to put your work out there and say, you know, critique welcome, feedback welcome, then absolutely that's what you're asking for. But I think it's the unsolicited advice that can be the issue, because it's like, well, I'm just sharing this. I just want to share work without feeling like, oh, somebody's going to say something, you know, and waiting for that notification, wait for that like blip. Oh, okay, now that's just like taking my whole day down, you know. So it's kind of like, I just wanted somewhere that this could be done without there being any recourse, you know, from it.
And what's the response been so far? What have people, has that achieved what you wanted it to so far?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just been lovely to sort of like see such diverse work there. You know, people, what they're creating, it's just like, oh my god, this is incredible stuff. And you know, some of the photographers in there, they're exhibiting. Some of them are putting, you know, zines out. Some are, you know, running studios, and others are just kind of like making this for them or as a hobby, or you know, just quietly.
Is it worldwide?
Yeah, so it's open globally, basically, but it's definitely along the ethos of shoot, film, be nice, you know, idea. Because there's so many other places for the rest of it. I didn't want only open to women, right? It's open to everybody. I made that decision very specifically because otherwise you end up with an echo chamber, right? You end up with like us just talking to people who think the same as you or feel the same as you, and there's a lot of men in the industry who I know lots of awesome female photographers, right? And so they should have the chance to be able to share their work and to talk about that and to sort of like support them and cheer them, you know, along. So, you know, I wouldn't, for example, I would be like, I'm not going to ban Paul from coming into that group.
I wouldn't take it personally. I'd be like, that's probably fair.
Yeah.
because you're a fantastic source, Paul. It means you can bring in all of these wonderful women.
I am useful as a conduit to other people. That is true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But do you see what I mean? Like, there's no point in it just being a cyclical conversation, right? It's more there to be like a space where it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know this woman who lives in New York, but she's got this fantastic studio space. Like, she posted some videos of her going to her studio and just checking it was okay, and just talking about how much she misses being able to shoot, you know, models in Brooklyn, and it was just, it's fascinating and lovely, and that's very far removed from what I do. So it was a nice sort of like extra thing, getting to see other stuff that's going on, like the 12-12 project. That's like 12 photographers over 12 months. I actually don't know if they're all women, but the people that I know in that project are women. So that's awesome as well, because they're also creating this such beautiful work as well. So it's that kind of thing that I think we just need to see more of it in more of a mainstream way, I guess, you know, so it doesn't just stay in its own little bubble.
And do you feel that the more you put yourself out there, and the more that, and we'll talk about, you know, some of the projects that you've very successfully put out there in a minute, do you feel that gives you the confidence to do more, so it's like a positive cycle, or does it get harder almost?
I think both, really. Yeah, both. But yeah, the main part of it is that it's good to do those kinds of things. Every time you make that decision, like coming on here today and doing this is like a new challenge for me.
Exactly.
I'm sitting there, I was properly feeling quite like sick before, quite nervous and like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Oh! But you bullied me into it, so here I am. No, I'm joking. But it is about visibility, right? It is about being a sort of campaign. There was the 100 heroines that was done by the RPS, the Royal Photographic Society. That was awesome. That was such a cool way of like finding all of these people I'd never heard of before. They also did a historical side of that as well. So it was kind of like current as well as from a historical basis. And I think every time something like that gets picked up and pushed out that little bit more, it's just growing that audience and those ideas that it's possible. But you have to see it to be it, right? You do have to kind of like go, oh, okay, I can see a woman doing that. That means it feels just straight away more normal, more kind of like accepted, more like, yeah, it's not even a question. So the more we can see that, I think the more people we will find, it becomes a snowball effect.
Exactly.
We'll get there. What do you think, Marina? Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I think, it's a really good thing to do, like that, that we have to share, like we have to put ourselves a little bit more, it's because, and also to get used to be ourselves in front of a camera, for example, like we are doing right now, just, to show how we are, what are the things that we feel passionate about. And I think that these kind of things, inspire other people, which is our main job, basically. I know a part of the educational side. So I think you said the reason that, or the thing that we need to do to encourage more women to do more, like to do more things. Yes, let's do it.
Like working with Ilford was awesome because obviously I bribed them to let me in. I was like,
totally legit. That's fair. Yeah.
You go here, have all the cake, But yeah, it was awesome because actually seeing some of the comments and things from the video and some of the feedback that they've had, there has been comments about like, it's really refreshing to see a woman in the darkroom doing this, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like I hope that it would be, I mean, if I were watching it as perhaps somebody just coming into the industry or a photographer in general, and I saw somebody who was, a woman doing that kind of thing, it does make it feel more like, oh yeah, that's, of course, why not, right?
Exactly.
So that's kind of what keeps me going with it, as much as it's like personally, it's like, well,
Cheryl Lee has just written again saying definitely inspired over here. So
yes,
there we go. No, I think that's fair. And then
sorry, my rose riveter pose.
Yes, exactly. So if we go to we've mentioned it a couple of times. Let's look at it in a little bit more detail because we're going to spend a bit of time on pinhole photography, not just because it was pinhole photography last week. I think it's a nice time to do that, but also because it does tie in quite nicely with some of the things you've been saying. So let me just switch here. So we've switched to a Petapixel article.
Right.
Written by yourself, published last week.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yes, we can see photos of you. It's definitely you. Before we go any further, you got a free undo. So
nice.
That's amazing. No, so you've had this, and I saw at the bottom. It's been shared hundreds of times on Facebook. I loved what you were saying earlier about the one person who always needs to say something. What did they say? Like, we can't see their faces or something.
Oh yeah. It's my favourite thing. Do you know what? I'm gonna get that framed. I'm gonna print that out. I'm gonna frame it up and put it on the wall or on a t-shirt or something because it's brilliant. I love it.
So I'm going to show some of the photos going through. So if you just tell us a little bit about the background. So this is a project that did happen a couple of weeks ago. But what did you do?
Right. Yeah. What did you do, Rachel? Yeah, I went out in the street and took some pinhole photos. Yay! It basically Elvis from Undo he sent me a message ages ago, just sort of going, "Oh, I've got something to put in the post to you," and I was like, "Oh, that's exciting! It might be like a keyring or something." And then it turned up, and it was a whole bloody box, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So I opened up the box, I was like, "Oh!" So yeah, and inside the box was another box, and inside that. No, that was the camera, obviously, because it's a pinhole camera. Sorry, it's just my little joke. But yeah, it basically they'd sent me this gorgeous like 6x9 pinhole camera, and I've always loved shooting with pinhole. Again, because it's a really simple, easy way to get into photography, into analog photography. And one of the very first things I bought once I sort of like started was my Ilford Obscura. So this is a large format pinhole camera basically, and I just love the fact that I could just open up this black box and make a photograph. I mean, how cool is that? Yeah. So getting the Undo, I bought previously their 35mm one, which has like a little sort of like flappy shutter on it, made of wood. Again, just gorgeous things. Obviously Undo aren't the only pinhole photography maker, sort of camera maker. There's so many out there, but I do love something that's like that, with it being like the wood.
Although while you say that, I have one lip.
There you go.
I had to pay for mine though, so
well, I have, just so you know, obviously I had bought them in the past myself. So yeah, this wasn't meant to be like an advert for it. It was just that it happened to arrive the day before World Pinhole Photography Day. So you'd have to be, pretty daft to not go and use it. So I thought, right, okay, I'd love to go and shoot with this. This is super exciting. And our neighbours on the same day, on the Saturday, had put like a little flyer through our letterbox saying we're basically going a bit stir crazy, and they run a We Make Spaces, which is like a creative organisation based around community and things as well. So they were like, okay, well, we can't go out to the community, but we can do something on our street, right? Because it's literally outside our front door, or here. And we're gonna run street bingo. So 3:00 tomorrow, everybody just bring a chair and sit it outside your front door, and we've got a megaphone, and we're just gonna shout some bingo numbers down the street. And they'd drawn out like a bingo chart as well. So that was really cool. And I thought, well, as it was, I didn't really know what I was going to shoot on Pinhole Photography Day. I knew I might as well do something. So I thought, well, there's been lots of people doing the kind of like doorstep photography and what have you, but I can't hold a camera that well when I'm taking my dog out. She's quite a big dog, and trying to like battle with both at once just became, it was going to be too difficult to do that. So as part of my exercise, I take her. So it's either I stay in or I have to, go out with her and try and take photos then. So I thought, well, this is something that's literally on my doorstep. It would be lovely to kind of like meet people and what have you. So I took the camera out, and they were shouting out the numbers and things. And I basically just kind of like walked, in a zigzag kind of thing down the road, so that we were kind of keeping away from everybody, and set my camera up and said, okay, it's World Pinhole Photography Day, guys. I'm not just some random weirdo. I actually just live there. And would it be okay if I took your photo? It'll be a 5-second exposure, so hold as still as you can. And then I sort of like timed it down for them, so it became a bit more like an experience. It was quite nice to actually get a chance to sort of like count them down with it, and then move on to like the next group and what have you, and take their photo. And I got nearly to the end of the street and was about to come back, and they dropped the bingo ball. They went everywhere.
Oh no.
No.
I know. And it was like, hang on a minute, everybody, we're just gonna have to try and scrabble under the cars and find these bingo balls and get them all back in. But yeah, so it was fine. The prizes of toilet roll and prosecco were won, so that was all good. So yeah.
And the last photo that I'm showing, I think, is it you, Adam and Marcy, a self-portrait?
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking about if it was you or not.
And how did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was a 20-second exposure, which is why I put it on a tripod in the middle of the road, basically, because with pinhole, normally you get really close, to get those really interesting kind of perspectives and things. But obviously I couldn't with this. So I was literally over the other side of the street. So even though it still looks quite, so it was quite a different experience from what I would normally have been. But with that, what I did with that one was I set that up, basically opened the shutter, ran and stood in place, and then ran back again. I was like, that'll do.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay there? Like it was like 5 seconds? Like
I was probably in that shot for maybe, probably about 6-7 seconds or something. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, that's fun.
It looks really sharp, and in fairness, like all of these look really sharp.
Yeah,
for
I was
pinhole.
really impressed. Yeah.
The one of the two older ladies sitting in there,
love
like
that shot. I love it. Honestly,
I was so pleased. When it was one of those. There's so many that the shot that got away, aren't there? Right?
Yeah.
In life, you're like, damn it, it's gone. But that one, I could see them as I was kind of like coming down the road, and I was like, oh, that's my shot. That's the one I just need to get that photo. And because I was stood on the other side of the road, they couldn't actually hear me very well.
What?
So they didn't realise that it was going to be a 5-second exposure, so I was kind of like trying to explain, shouting across the road, you're going to need to hold still. So that's why it's quite blurry, actually. You can't really see, because they had little matching face masks on. So you can't really see that particularly well. But it's because they were talking to each other going, what did she say? What did she say? What's going on?
What?
Exactly.
So,
Also, we've had a question. Gemma's asked, which film did you use?
HP5
Classic.
plus.
Classic.
Yes. I had tried done some test shots with some oh gosh, what did I use? Some Kodak. I did try some. I did like a test roll, but for these ones on the day, I decided to go with HP5 plus, because I thought, well, I don't know exactly what the conditions are going to be like. Thankfully, it was beautiful sunshine, so we were really lucky. But obviously, half the street is in shadow and half the street is in bright sun as well. So I was like, well, I can't change it halfway, whatever. I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to shoot it at box speed. I could have obviously pushed it. I could have shot it at 800 and made the exposures quicker. But actually, I kind of thought, well, part of this is the fact that I want it to feel real. I don't want it to feel too posed. Obviously, people are sort of like sitting there, and smiling at the camera or what have you. But I also kind of wanted to capture a little bit of the movement, and the fact that it wasn't just that I'd sat people in the street, that they were interacting with what was going on. Like the one of him with the megaphone, you can't see his head because he's actually talking to different people. And I thought actually the 5 seconds sort of like exposure time gave me a chance to for it to be a different experience for those people. Because if you think about it, these are people who've probably not ever used pinhole before, so it's kind of like, I was like, it's not quite like a normal camera, but it will take a photo, and then I just sort of like set my little like timer sort of thing, and we'd do a little countdown, so that was quite nice. So that's why I did it like that.
And as we're talking about pinhole photography, I want to ask, because I saw that comment about that. Oh, their faces are blurred. What a waste to do pinhole photography. So, Rachel, now that we have you here, I like to ask you. So for you, what's the beauty of shooting with pinhole cameras?
The beauty is the fact that you can't see people's faces. But it is though. Also, it's more about like that idea that you can jump into a shot and disappear out of it. It can be quite ethereal. It can be quite dreamy, or it can be really sharp if you want it to be. You can get really close. You've got such a huge, like infinite, almost like depth of field on it. It's very different from other types of photography, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
And the fact that it's so simple, I think, is what really appeals to me. The fact it's a box with a hole in it, and some film or paper that reacts with light, and that's literally it. It's like
So
you don't need much, you know.
Do you think that a person that wants to start with pinhole photography needs to be technical, needs to have some knowledge beforehand, or what do you think would be the best to start with?
Absolutely not. Like
No.
no. Get one of my we had a lodger who's actually a very, very good friend of mine, and she basically like would occasionally kind of walk into the kitchen or different rooms in the house and be like, "What the hell are you doing now?" And I'd be there with like toilet rolls and Pringle pots and like cardboard boxes like this, kind of like, she was just like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" But it was just me kind of like testing stuff out and going, "Oh, isn't that cool?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, Rach, it's brilliant." And I'd be like, "No, but look at this. Look, if we shine light through here, then you can see it upside down here." It's just, yeah.
Because just to be clear, for people who don't know about pinhole, it is literally, there is no lens. It is a hole.
Sorry, I wasn't explaining that very well, was I? Okay,
No,
so for example,
just...
this is the Ilford Obscura.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll just show you quickly. Whoop, she says. So in the dark, what you do is you go, okay, I've got a piece of white paper, which has got some photographic chemical on it. You put it into the back of here. You literally, right, it's like a magic trick, yeah? Like,
I'd say the rabbit, where does the rabbit come from?
The rabbit's at your end, I think, Paul.
That is true.
Oh, yeah, true.
We met Lady, your beautiful rabbit, earlier. And then you put the other side of the black box on. And basically, when you're ready, you open this up, which has a tiny little pinhole inside. There we go. So it's not even that hole there. There's actually a tiny little pinhole there. You close that back up once you've made your exposure. That's basically your shutter. Okay. And then you would open it back up again in the dark. You put it into some other chemicals, and ta-da! And you've got an image.
Whoa!
That quick, right?
Oh my gosh!
There we go. So this is a castle in Wales. This one, actually.
And you took that just now. That's incredible.
What's the photographic paper that you normally use for pinhole photography?
This one actually is the multigrade, Ilford Multigrade 4, Generation 4. And it's the glossy. You don't have to use the glossy. The other thing is, depending on what receptacle you're putting it into, if you've got glossy, it can bounce light across, so you can end up with sort of like black lines and dots and things. So if it's a round receptacle, you probably might not want to use glossy, or you might want to at least think about that as well, that you might end up with black lines. But because this is obviously a flat back in the box, it's got nowhere else to go, so the light travels in through the pinhole here like this, and then shoots onto sorry, my sound effect.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah. Sorry.
Because your film's here. There we go. And there we go. It's my Sunny 16 podcast.
Oh, well, look at the branding. Look at the branding. Amazing.
Yeah.
No, yeah. No, sorry, I was about to say that's brilliantly explained, and it moves us nicely onto the challenge, because we've also had a comment from Hilary Clark. I did a workshop with Rachel, and we used takeaway cartons for the camera. I mean, this is why. I mean, the Ondos are gorgeous. Like, and as you say, other cameras are available. They are beautiful.
So adorable.
The principle is the same. It's a hole in a box. You can make them out of takeaway cartons, milk bottles, Coke cans, the solar can. If Sam's still around, is the principle is that on a very different type. I have two 35mm to give away, 8x. There is a reason we're bringing them in on pinhole, because of reciprocity failure, which is the concept in film that becomes relevant, particularly with pinhole, which is as you shoot film, its exposure time doesn't go in a straight line. As you get longer, it needs to go boom. And suddenly films that should, you go stop, rather than starting to double, it goes to 4 or 5 times. A/2 does not have that. Its reciprocity is exceptional, which means it's a great pinhole. We need to give these away. We forgot to finish this conversation beforehand, so let's talk about it now. How about, Rachel, we have... You've given a brilliant sell there on pinhole. I think everyone here If they're not already, if they missed Pinhole Photography Day last week, then we'll have another informal one, and lots of people can try. And again, to be clear, when we say pinhole, literally pin in a hole of sheet metal can be enough to create an image. It might be.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
It is a pinhole. There is no magic, like clever, like you get more refined, but that is the basics of it.
People just have to come and do a workshop, right? Or there you go.
A virtual workshop. Exactly. Many more details are available through the website. But how about the person who comes up with the most interesting sounding creative project for some pinhole specific films, and they can write them to you on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook. So send them to Rachel. Rachel will be the judge. Shall we say a couple of days? So Saturday lunchtime? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, then there we go. So guys, people are saying I should try pinhole. Analogue Mark said it. I think I saw Cheryl Lee say it as well. Here is your chance. Make your pitch to Rachel. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And just tell her what you would do with 2 rolls of black and white film for pinhole. Whether or not you have a camera yet, whether you will get one in the future, doesn't matter.
The craziest idea, the best.
We can make one out of something that you've got probably in the room with you, right? So.
Oh, hang on, there we go.
Pineapple.
The prizes just got better. For the winner, Rachel will help you make one with something in your house.
That's a good one.
Something in your house is probably easier to
say. Just in case someone's like,
I'm in my dwelling place.
Ooh, finish your shampoo. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So Rachel will help you make a pinhole camera from something in your house. I will send you the 2 films, and we'll announce that over the weekend. Brilliant. Well, there we go. That is hugely exciting. Now we're running over time, but frankly, I don't really care because I'm having a wonderful time with you guys.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows, we're not through all the questions. We've still got a quiz to go, so we're going to crack on, frankly, for a little bit more. And actually, should we go to the quiz now, Marina? You've got your terribly evil questions and your excellent quiz jacket.
Yeah. Are we doing quiz? Okay, hang on.
Yep. Okay.
Yes. Nice. Is that? Okay.
You have a jacket as well. Is this like?
Yes, I do. No. This is not the official jacket for the quiz. So just give me a moment.
I'm a bit worried about Rachel having a costume change as well. This is the most.
Oh, nice.
Oh, look at this! Look at this!
I'm ready for the quiz.
Look at this! Is incredible. We've never had a guest with a costume change before. This is incredible. Okay, fantastic. Right, I'm going to disappear from the screen. Everyone will be pleased to hear, because Marina is running the show. I will try and actually keep score this time because I generally just forget to and get told off by Rachel. But Rachel's here to tell me off in person, so perfect. Right, I will try and keep time.
Have I got to keep score as well?
No, I will keep score. You will. Oh, look at the jacket. That is very formal. Okay, over to you guys. Marina, you're up. Marina, your microphone's gone. Your microphone's gone. Okay. Well, this is a nice turn up because normally my microphone that breaks, and this time it's Marina's. So while Marina very quickly does that.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Marina, you're back.
Yes, I'm back. I'm back with my evil questions. I'm back. Are you ready? Right. No. So it's about how well you know Sunny 16 podcast, right?
Oh God.
Cool. And this is going to be a quiz of just 5 questions.
Okay.
But I had no mercy with these questions. Right. So, the first question will be back in 2017. So, it's about the first episode that you were in Sunny 16 podcast as a co-host.
Okay.
What topics did you talk about the first time you joined the Sunny 16 podcast as a co-host officially?
I think it was called The Three Amigos. I know the title, I think. Did we talk about being 3 amigos? We talked about me having ovaries. I know that was mentioned.
Uh-huh.
What else? What else did we talk about?
Well, it's something that you know that you do on your workshops.
Was it about cyanotype?
It was about more printing.
Printing. Contact prints?
Yes. Well, not
really?
contact, please, but it was more about the printing darkroom techniques and also composition.
Oh, right. Well, I don't know what I could have had to add to
I'll tell you
that,
what, I'll do a glockenspiel noise for that.
Boo boo. No worries. Right. So let's see if you can answer the second question. Right. So okay, a few years ago, you guys talk about a very special tin type that someone recently, more or less recently, done in a way that no one had ever done before.
Okay.
So how was shot the most unique tin type in the world?
Right. So I think we talked about two interesting tin types. There was one that was done in the middle of a desert from a drone. Yes. It was really hot, and I was really confused as to how they managed to create a tin type from a drone, and that it and it hadn't ended up that it was still wet because they go so quickly in heat. It means that you have to be like, okay, coat it, get it up straight away, get the shot, get it back down, and develop it.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Correct.
Yes,
correct.
Applause, definitely applause for that.
This was a tin type made with a drone-mounted camera. Yep, yeah. Correct. Right. So maybe the third question. Well, it's a little bit tricky, but the third question is: who was the person who was invited as a guest for the first anniversary of Sunny 16 podcast?
First anniversary.
Yeah, and we talk about these.
Is this Ilford? First anniversary?
No. Yeah, the first time. A hint. So last time that I was here in the YouTube live streaming, we talk about this person who is like anonymous. No one has. Yes, correct. Exactly. Well done. Okay, right. So the fourth question. Right. So guys, throughout these years you've been talking about how some crowdfunded projects related to film photography succeed, but what was the Kickstarter project that raised, $1 million and was a complete fail? Was it the Yashica? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. There we go.
35. Did you know that, Paul, about that project?
Oh, no. Yes.
Oh my God.
Do you remember that project, Marina?
Yeah, I do. I rewatched the video
it sounds like, from that reaction, it sounded like you backed
it.
Yes,
quite big.
Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, it's just that Yashica Y35 is like, why they've done that? Honestly, please. Anyway.
Answers on a postcard to Paul, I guess, maybe.
Trevor Lee said, I still get nightmares.
You know what? Yeah, they had like a digi film.
But it was like a cartridge, wasn't it, that you put in, and it was
a camera that it came with. Well, depends of the package. It came with 3 or 6 digi films.
Okay.
And each of them had a different
effects, like a filter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like imitating black and white color. But so you had to open the back of the camera and then load 2 batteries, and then a SD card, and then to get the right feeling of film photography, you put that nice kind of APS DG film there, and yeah, it was like
I just want to jump in and say Sam's just written in saying he has 2. They're awful. But I think he's avoiding the fact that he clearly backed it to the point where he got 2.
Oh, Michael Beverland say I sold mine at a profit. Yeah.
Well, that's the best thing that's ever happened.
The best thing.
I mean, that's the sort of person you want in your business, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
If they can sell something like that at a profit.
Exactly. Right, Rachel. So it's going to be the last question. So last year, actually, it's not that far away. So last year, you've done a really interesting assignment called 1 hour challenge.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, do you remember?
Yes.
Cool. So do you remember what was Aid's setup for this challenge? Sorry.
What was Aid's setup for the challenge?
And I want to know, first of all, I want to know the camera that he used and what else he used.
He used instant film.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, he used instant film, and he shot his shed in the middle of the night, in the dark.
Yeah.
Marina, is that a point? Or
Yes.
It sounds like you're missing something.
What am I missing?
I mean, you were right in the thing that it was instant film. Yeah. But I was
It was his Instax Mini Neo 90.
Well, the square one. Oh.
I don't know. Go on.
Right. It's the Instax Square camera plus a speed light that he felt synchronized.
Yes,
I don't know how he done that. Well, he was saying something about that this challenge wouldn't be really hard in the daylight. That's why he did it on like in the evening or so. But he done really quite.
Well, it's because Graham rang up and he was like, "Oh, I've had an idea for the show." We're going to do an hour. So basically we go out and have an hour, but we're doing it now. And it was like 7 o'clock at night at that point. So there was like no light. And I was like, oh, great. Thanks so much for this. Brilliant. So Aid went out and shot outside in his garden with his, you're right, with the speed light. And I remember like the shot, like, and seeing how he got this beautifully lit shed.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I was like, I've no idea how I managed to do it, but
and now that we have you here, so what did you feel about that 1 hour challenge? So after you've done that, what are things that you thought, this is good for? What was the reason? What were the reasons that you, about that challenge?
Why did I like that challenge? Sorry. Yeah. Because I'm just gonna go and shoot, and because it was dark and I couldn't shoot with like natural light. I just had to find a light. I think I got one from like the bedside table or something, and was like, right, stick that there, get my camera and basically pop it onto a tripod, take it down to, I think it was like 2-second exposure or something like that. And just kind of work within, because I think what it is it was working in such constraints. It's always a good place to start if you're a bit stuck, like in a rut with something. Kind of just going, okay, I'm going to give myself these. I can only shoot within this box, or I can only shoot, with this one particular kind of thing. It's always about paring it back and starting again. I think from scratch, and then you'll get there. You'll get back to an idea. Will blossom from that, but sometimes you have to strip it back to, like that was. You've got one roll of film, you've got 1 hour. We've literally got to record the audio of it as well. Mm-hmm. So I just had to get on with it and get it shot. So yeah, that's what I enjoyed. Yeah. How did I do?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Well, the first one, boop, boop. Okay, second one, yeah, you said it right. The drone mounted camera. Then, nope. Second. What about the last one? Paul, would you say that it is right? Would you say it's correct?
Hey, I got the subject.
I mean, you literally asked for the camera and the camera didn't come up. I mean...
I got the right format, I got the right type of film, and I got the subject matter of the shot.
All right, tell you what, we'll do applause. We'll do a summary of applause.
Okay.
Thank you.
There we
I
go.
did
I'm
my
back in,
sparkles.
and
Thank you so much, Rachel.
I feel like I had to dress up because
Oh, yeah.
because of everything that's there. Brilliant. Well done. Well done, Rach. That was an excellently difficult quiz. I appreciate that a lot. Well done, Marina. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, then. Well, we're happily overrunning, but having a brilliant time. But there is a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that we covered while we had you. There is something that you are launching at the moment, Rach, and
Yep.
here is your chance to talk all about it. And if you feel awkward selling it, then Marina and I will ask you very pointed questions until that happens.
Yep.
Please tell us what's going on.
Yes, to start with, I do feel very awkward. It's always very horrible saying these kinds of things. But as we all know, life has changed somewhat recently, and the challenge of obviously running a small independent creative business has become even more difficult than it's been in the past. But what I thought I would do is have a look at ways I could adapt what I do and take it online. So I've always really wanted to run some kind of like training course anyway, because I've always done them in person, and I love doing that. But it's also a chance for me to be able to help other people who maybe can't get to Liverpool, who I can't see in real life, who I would never get that opportunity to work with. I thought what I should do is set up some way of doing that online. So I've started a Patreon. I was originally under the impression that Patreon was just for kind of like things like podcasts, to sort of like donate a little bit towards that. But actually, it's a whole kind of platform where you can learn, you can basically support somebody. You can be really part of that relationship and that ongoing conversation. You'll get rewards for different tiers. So I've set up a Patreon, which is patreon.com/little vintage photography, and you'll find me there. I've launched it literally today because I knew that I was going to be seeing you guys.
Congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you very much.
Hang on, I'm going to use party noise. There we go.
And I got the sparkles on for it as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Celebration. Yeah.
By the way, people in comments are loving this. People are saying finally.
Yeah.
Finally, we can send you
Rachel,
some money and support you, and also, as you say, get things in return.
Exactly. So I'm actually currently, whilst we're recording this, I'm also doing a little behind the scenes over here. Hi guys. So that's filming at the moment. So that's going to be part of one of my tiers. So my little video diaries that I've been doing, things like my ideas, just sort of seeing my process, all of those kinds of things. I'll be putting those up as well. And then there'll be a section where I'll be doing proper kind of like tutorials and workshops as videos and resources, and I'll upload those and build it as an Analogue academy, kind of like library, if you like, as we go. So you'll kind of learn along with each month. And then I've got a couple of extra tiers that I thought I would offer, which was more sort of like tailored support. So sometimes it can be quite isolating and quite a lonely experience as a creative person, and especially at the moment, I think. But in general, quite often we're just sort of like there busy working on something ourselves, and you can't always talk to family and friends about what you're doing because they don't always get it in quite the same way. And I thought it would be nice to offer that option for me to do sort of like one-to-one like guidance and talk you through and just sort of generally have a discussion and a sounding board. So I've got a couple of tiers for that as well, if you'd like to support that too.
So while you've been talking, at least one person has literally signed.
Oh, was that you, Paul?
Nope. And now I feel embarrassed because it's not. I'm going to blame the fact that my computer's being used. As soon as my computer isn't, I will. But someone immediately has done that, and I think that's brilliant because you're right. This isn't about I don't know, like feeling sorry for people and trying to help and this vague helping the artist stuff. Yeah. You're offering time to help people get better at something that you are exceptional at, and people want to learn. This is a brilliant step, and I think
I hope it's a mutually beneficial relationship, really, and I wanted to be able to. I realized that actually, I can't always go on like photo walks and I can't always do those sorts of things, but we can do those virtually. And there's the option to have that extra support and guidance and things as well. Like I say in this, I don't always have all the answers, but sometimes just talking it through can really help, I think.
No, exactly. And I think what people have probably already heard from today is that you no one has all the answers, but you probably have quite a lot of them. When you've gone through things that people are struggling with, and you have invested 5 years of your life in something that people are looking for support from, and if you can help people achieve that, in a way that is you enjoy as well, that's brilliant. And also, like, from personal experience, I know that Rachel goes well out of her way to help people, so I can guarantee you that whatever she's written as the reward, you'll get more than that in almost certainly, as soon as you're one of there's people who set up patrons that I kind of think that might be quite transactional. Rachel, I think you will be literally adopted into a family. So no, that is genuinely fantastic.
There'll be photos of my dog, definitely, and cake. Actually, that was one of the feedback that I got from somebody when I sent a preview link over. They were like, "You didn't mention your love of cake in this, Rachel. I think you probably should." Like, that's
honestly,
a good idea.
Like, if there's just a tier where you get photos of Marcy just sent to your phone, that's the one I'm looking for straight away after this.
That's right. And as a kind of like extra special bonus for the next 14 days, if you sign up to the Analogue Academy one, the 35mm, I've given them all little titles of different formats.
No. And APS is the best one. APS is the best, right?
APS isn't in there because I didn't want the fight. Basically, Paul's like, "What fight?
What fight? Everyone loves APS." Yeah.
But you'll see that on some of the tiers there's a little extra bonus, which is that I will make a cyanotype postcard and send that out to you, so you'll have like a unique one of those as well. So yeah.
So if in the next 2 weeks you sign up to the 35mm or better, you will also get a cyanotype. Wowzers. Okay, fantastic.
So, the nice part of it is that there's like goals and things as well. So you can sort of see, as I mentioned earlier, like so many different ideas, so many different things I'd like to do. This will give a chance for me to get to like the next part, either making a zine or looking at developing my next kit, that kind of thing as well, so that I can then make sure that that's making it more accessible to people as well. So all of these kinds of little creative goals as well would be really helpful.
No, that's perfect. Okay, so we can Google Patreon Little Vintage Photography. Have you tweeted about it this afternoon that people can find?
I literally pressed launch 10 minutes before we got on this call.
Oh, really?
So, yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was literally what you said. Oh, I launched the Patreon. Okay, and it was literally 10 minutes ago. Wow.
Okay.
It was whilst my tea was heating up, ready.
You thought, well, while my tea's heating up, launch Patreon. Okay, that.
I will be posting it out, but any extra sort of like support in terms of sharing and stuff would be so helpful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Rachel, thank you so much for this. I mean, for me, I think that this really like such a nice thing that you've done that for the film community, and I just wanted to say thank you. Really,
you're very welcome. It's awesome. You see, we were talking about how lovely this community is, and I just want to give everybody a big hug. I miss hugs.
I miss hugs.
I know. The first photo walk, we're not on a walk anywhere. We're just out there, like just happy together. And after 2 days, we'll be like, we should walk somewhere. We're like, not yet. We're still just chilling.
So the photo walks. Oh, I should make that clear. It would be like a virtual photo walk. So I'm going to set up a separate Discord so that you can join that as an audio photo walk. I enjoyed one that I did so much recently that Christian Strauff was on. He's one of our listeners, and there's a Sunny 16 podcast one. So I thought actually, quite often what we do is we go, oh yeah, we'll do that, and then you kind of forget about it. And it's like, let's make some time to do a little virtual photo walk together each month and kind of build on that, really build those relationships. So yeah.
Wonderful. Right. No, thank you so much. That is brilliant. So the link will be very visible for everyone, hopefully. If not, Google it. If not, message any of us and we will make sure we have it. We'll obviously add it to the comments in this video for people who are on catch up. But that is really exciting. And you sent me a couple of thoughts over the last couple of days, and the amount of thought you've put into the tiers, and the way that you want to make sure that anyone who does anything with it, it gets something back that is way more value than the money they're putting in. It's brilliant. That is unbelievably wonderful. So that is a very positive note. So I'm going to take it down a tone before we finish, because I've got some last questions.
Should I be worried? Do I need to take my sparkles off?
No. We were all. I like
Nope.
the fact we all now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the most effort I've put into my appearance for 2 months now. So, and my wife can definitely, say that's true in the comments. She's been fact checking me. No, we've had a couple of comments. So the questions that came in from people. You obviously are well known for being able to create mobile dark rooms, whether it's with Rosie the Caravan, whether it's ones that you set up in different places. And obviously at the moment, people are looking to create dark rooms or spaces in their own home. So we had a lot of questions about that. Are there any top tips you have for people who are at the moment going to be, likely will be in our homes for a while, setting up their own dark room?
I guess top tip is don't overthink it. You don't need a lot to be able to set up a dark room. You can use, literally tinfoil to like black out a window if you need to. That works great. You don't have to have running water in the room. You could literally have. I mean, I've processed film and paper in a bucket in a barn with a holy roof, and I just have to do it at night, basically, because there was light coming through. So I was like, okay, it was like 10 o'clock at night. Cool, I can make some photos now. I got somebody to like run across the room and like switch on the light. So I was like, okay, we're going to flash the piece of paper so I can make a contact print, because I didn't have an enlarger. So I was like, okay. Basically, okay, hit it now, and they switched it on. Okay, switch it off, and they switched it off, and I was like, dun, 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 dun. So don't overthink it, seriously. In terms of having light, like I made like a pop-up dark room in a library basement. That was really fun, because that was with a group of kids who it was part of a Arts Council England project called Techie Art, and these were kids who'd never done anything like this before. And goodness knows why, this particular library, they made the children's library down in the basement originally. It was really scary. Like, it was like a proper horror film kind of, oh my God. It smelled, they were like, it smells really fusty and musty, and it was brilliant. I was like, right, we're going to make the most amazing dark room down here. It turns out that there was like a window over the other side, but I was like, well, we'll just hide behind the bookcase here. You hold this bicycle light, right? So I had one of them holding the bicycle light. And then I got these little like plastic takeaway trays, and I was like, okay, we'll put some chemicals in these, and then you chuck the paper in there, and there you go, you got an image. And they were like, what? So like blew their tiny minds. It was brilliant. So yeah, you just don't need very much, really.
Do you think that you need a lot of invest to build your own dark room, like at least the basic one?
I mean, you can go literally as all bells and whistles as you like, right? So if you've got the space and if you've got the time and you've got the money to do it, then go for your life. We'd just all be very, very jealous of it, but in a lovely way. If you've not got any of those things, you can still print. You can still make something, even if you can't find an enlarger. Like, it never ceases to amaze me how creative people can be with what they do. It's like I was saying about my friend coming in and being like, what are you doing with this random piece of toilet roll and stuff? Ooh, well, if I got a red plastic cup, could I put a light in it, and would that work as a safe light? I would always say test it. Obviously, you don't want to wreck a 100-sheet box of Ilford paper.
This could be a really great challenge, like how to build your dark room for example, £10.
Well, again, Shirley's literally just commented, and she was one of the ones who I think pinged me asking questions, saying I'm about to build the most basic dark room ever. And I do think that's true, because if you look online, like how to build a dark room, obviously you'll get these are the really fancy lights. This is the enlargers. By the way, enlargers can cross the bottom. By the way, this is what you need. Ventilation. Now, there's a safety thing. Obviously, you need to not be breathing fumes.
I would always make sure that you have access to fresh air, obviously, that you set a timer on your phone or use it on the Darkroom app so that you're not accidentally, again, fogging your paper. So you can get a Darkroom timer, download it onto your phone, and then it will be shown in red. So it will only be in red rather than white light. Make sure that you're taking regular breaks. If you've got, obviously, at the moment, I appreciate not everybody's got access to a proper mask, but that's another way that you could use one of the sort of like ventilation masks and things. If you've ever done any kind of like DIY renovation and have one that properly works, that's a possibility. Or have a gap so that you can just open the window a crack, make sure that you've got some air coming through, and maybe a piece of like black felt over it or something, so that that can move without actually letting in light, that kind of thing. So the other thing is, like, obviously I have Rose in my caravan, which I used as a camera obscura. Or caravan obscura, and I set the toilet up as like a Darkroom. Now she's a tiny caravan; she's like 10 foot long, like in total. So the toilet was pretty much the size of me plus me again. That's about it. And I couldn't shut the door, so I had to get somebody time on the outside. I was like, shut me in, come back in 10 minutes to let me out. I can't get out. So it had a little like pop down sink. So the sink actually like just sort of like sat next to the wall. So you kind of like flip that out. And then I was like, right, okay, I've got a tray here. So I'll put my tray on this. I've got a torch. Yeah. So I've got my torch here. And if I hold that there and flash it, okay, there we go. Switch it on, switch it off. I've got the bicycle light, the red bicycle light, like clipped, either to my head. I think I clipped it to my head at one point.
No, imagine you with that light
on my hat or something. Yeah, I was like, this will do. Excellent. Glamorous, obviously. And then I was like, okay, well, this is fine. I can develop here, stop in, just like chuck some water over it, fine. And then I've got the other tray, the tray of fix, sitting on the toilet itself. There we go.
Perfect. I think that's true. So, and what I like quite early on is saying, like, nighttime is your friend here. Someone messaged me about this the other day, and they were worried about, like, they'd created sort of basic setup, but they were like, I don't have perfect curtains or any blackout blinds, but even then there's gaps. And I said, well, where do you live? And they were like, well, we live in a village. Are you near a street lamp? No. Well, wait till midnight. That will cover a multitude of sins. It's just the fact that you wait till sunlight isn't going to affect it. That's definitely a great tip. Okay, I love the points on just basic safety and the ventilation. But again, people think, I get this a lot where people say, like, you need a proper fan installed, you need plumbing. And I mean, well, actually, you know what this reminds me of? And obviously the dark side was helped, but the Tanky McOne shots, the 1 Inch and Down documentary by the Danger Boys that was, if people haven't seen this is a documentary that I think is on Vimeo now.
Possibly, yes.
There's a couple of places. If you can't find it, then ping me. Where a couple of guys took decided to make a photo of, was it the biggest darkroom ever? And they went down into these underground oil tankers in Scotland and took a photo and developed it all underground. And again,
in the swimming pool.
Yeah, and you see the things that they're using, and it's not, they haven't got a working ventilation, or let's take water in and try and heat it up themselves. It is possible. I think if you understand and can practice the basics of the chemistry, there are.
One thing I would say is that don't use aluminium tins or like trays for your developing liquids, because they will react with it. So you want to go with like plastic or something for that kind of thing, and obviously not something you're going to ever use food in. Okay. So it is just about being sensible, right? And making sure that you're wearing gloves. My dad's hand, because my dad obviously worked as a photographer for many years, they are testament to the fact that you do not want to be getting chemicals on your skin for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
So I just say wear gloves, and obviously wear a mask. Make sure that you're setting some little times to leave and come back. Yeah.
I think on the Ilford's video you said that you were wearing a special gloves. There's a material that you said that is better.
Yeah, those ones are nitrile or nitrile. Yeah.
Because they don't react to the chemicals, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think in general, just making sure that you have access to water in some way, shape or form, close by, not that you've got to do a half-mile hike to get to it. But you don't need plumbing. You don't need to be like running water there. What you would do is you can literally just pop it into a wash tray. So as long as it's in water or in a tray at the end, then you can take that afterwards and wash it. No problem.
So you can do that in your own garage, for example.
Exactly. So you don't need to worry about that. I would say make sure that you wash the prints thoroughly, because if you leave any fixer on it, they will eventually degrade over time. But again, you could use that for an artistic effect. It's interesting looking back at the stuff that I did at college and going, well, I didn't wash that properly, did I?
And it is also the classic where you get impatient and you want to take it out. And that's also fine. You can then just put it back in and leave it overnight. Okay, so what I'm hearing is nowhere near as scary as people think. Nowhere near as much equipment as needed. Someone actually mentioned as well, I think it was Gemma, saying that Dan Kay on Twitter is offering prizes at the moment, apparently, for the best low-budget darkroom. So there we go. You could even win a prize. Also, this sounds like the perfect thing that someone could bring to a Patreon conversation with Rachel.
Absolutely.
How to set up a darkroom. Wonderful. Okay, there was a very specific question that came in from Neil about estimating times. He said, you've got to ask it, so I'm asking it. It's quite technical, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. But is there a way, when you're making a small print and then you want to go to a big print, basically, of estimating the time, or is test strips always going to be the solution?
So you obviously sent this over to me earlier. Thankfully, I was like, oh my God, don't ask me a question like that.
It literally started, like the GCSE science questions, like a train is moving towards you at this fate. It was literally like, I'd made a print of 5x7. I then moved to an 8x10. The time was 15 seconds. How long must... Yeah, it
is, isn't it? Well, I was like, okay, as always, I will try my best to help. So I did go and do a quick bit of research and had a little look, because it's not something that I've really looked at before, honestly. So I was like, okay, I'll go and see what's being said, or if there's any kind of like answers here. It sounds like it's not as simple as inverse square law, unfortunately. There are other factors that kind of come into play with that as well. So there's no simple, as far as I can tell, there's no simple answer to it. But I did find that there are or there were exposure monitor kind of like pieces of equipment, like accessories for the darkroom. So Ilford did one originally that was called the EM10.
What's it, like a light meter in the camera, but for
a little bit? Like, I think the idea is that you would hold it under the light and it would give you a reading, and then when you changed the height of your enlarger, it would give you a point where it was like, oh, that's the same amount of brightness, basically. So I think that is how that worked. I don't have one myself. This is, like I say, doing research for this question. I came across this.
I really hope Neil hasn't logged off. We're going to give him so much abuse if he's not here.
So I spoke to Ilford as well and asked, and they don't produce it anymore. But obviously they you can probably still find them around on eBay and things like that. If you want to try it, it's absolutely not foolproof, I believe. It's kind of like, this is a guide to, generally it's about the same kind of brightness. That doesn't mean that it'll be able to give you a proper exposure time and what have you. It might just be a starting point. To be honest, the way that I do it is I test strip. I just test strip. I think trying to take all of that into consideration, you just go, okay, it's bigger, it's going to be further away, it's going to take longer. I tend to use let's say you've got your 5x7 and it's 15 seconds exposure or whatever. I'd use that as my starting point for my next test strip. When I took it to 8x10, I'd be like, okay, I'll start at 15 seconds and then do my increments, like probably 3 seconds or something from that up. That would be.
I mean, I think that's a generally good rule of thumb. Always test strip. I think every time in the darkroom I've gone I can work out the difference and done like a thumb and immediately made a print. I've regretted it. And you end up doing test strips out of it anyway. You know, it's one of those things. No, that's brilliant. Thank you. I haven't seen actually Neil for a while, so we'll give him some views. But he can again. Great question if he's a patron. Actually, there was a question that came in for me. Very quick, I'll answer. Astrid asked about Analogue Wonderland European shipping. Unfortunately, because of the situation that we will not talk about during this escapism, it's been very tough. Borders have been closed. Postal systems have been difficult. Air freight has gone up by about 6 times. Little fact of the day for you, because of fewer planes. All of those means it's not happening at the moment. It will reopen as soon as things do. No date, unfortunately, for that. But I promise you, as soon as we think that parcels will arrive safely, reliably, and not costing you 6 times more, it will reopen. But anyway, thank you for asking, Astrid. Okay then, so Rachel.
Yes.
We are coming up to the 2 hours. There's everything that I think I was interested in asking you. I've covered all the main questions I think that came in. Marina, is there anything else that you would like to? Oh, there we go. Yes, here we go. Right, we're now settling into the second stage.
I was waiting for this moment. Okay, please. You know, guys, because film photographers, we tend to be very, very technical. You know, like. But you know, Rachel, I wanted to ask about your photography, and I wanted to ask about more the creative side of a photographer. And I just wanted to know, in your case, when you're taking photos, like let's say for your own project or let's say for your own clients, what is the most important thing for you? What is the thing that you focus the most when you're taking photos? For example, a client or for your personal work, to be like as much as creative as to be like as true as you can be to yourself when you're taking photos.
I think
to Rachel. Sorry.
I think they're two slightly different responses.
Okay.
When I'm creating work for myself, that's quite different from creating work for a client. If I'm creating work for a client, let's say I'm shooting a wedding or something, it's all about the story. It's all about their connection to each other. That's what I want to capture. So I tend to get my couples moving quite a lot, because that's when you get the most natural reactions and interactions between them. If you're just sort of like told to stand there and look like this, it always feels really no. Yes. So I like to get them moving and then kind of capture it from that, or just those kind of little looks and those little glimpses. Those are the things that I'm after with that. It's because, guys, I don't know if you have seen Rachel's photography, but yeah, I think that you have such a great sense of details. Like I can see your photos and see how your mood in that moment, like things that you were seeing, like such, I don't know, I think such a great photography that you do, Rachel, and I had to say it here. Sorry, thank you so much.
People, go to see Rachel's photography, please. Yes. And what about when you are creating photos for your own work?
Yeah, personal work. See, the biggest thing with that is trying to find time to actually do personal work is actually quite tough. I suppose for me, with that, things that I'm naturally drawn to as my own kind of like personal things tends to be nature and architecture. It just seems to be those are the things, like subject matter wise, that I'm just naturally drawn to. I love a good door. Seriously, I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful door.
This is like Hamish's solitary tree. This is one subject.
I love reflections. I love kind of like silhouettes. I really love the softness of film. So whatever I'm shooting, I'm always happy, because I feel like I can get precise. I can get something really sharp with digital. That's what that's there for me, or if I'm not going to be shooting Formula One with my film cameras. People have and do, and I'm like, these look amazing, but I think it's much more about the feel and about the emotion, and focus is a bourgeois concept, as they say, isn't it, right?
Exactly.
You know, obviously I love things to be in focus as well. I love shallow depth of field. I love, you know, that kind of that drop off and the dreaminess of it. But I think when I shoot like personal work, I'm always just making sure that it feels like film, I guess, because it's like that's why I'm choosing that particular tool to do that job, you know. Otherwise
Is there any film, for example, that you use for your work, like this is my film, okay, for example?
I shoot a lot of Ilford film in black and white. I don't shoot much Ilford colour film.
Sorry?
No, I just realised what I'd said. I was like, I use a lot of Ilford film for my black and white. But
Very little in the slide. Very little Ilford in the slide.
No, so sorry if that was confusing for anybody or anybody who for anybody who doesn't know, Ilford at this point they just make black and white, and in the past they have made colour, but that's not their wheelhouse. They are very much black and white. Kodak do both though. So obviously there's all sorts of other cool things like Lomo 800. I randomly put a roll of Lomo 800 in the back of my Hasselblad for the first when I actually got a Hasselblad back. I had again such a lovely community. Like Juan El Torres sent it over to me and said, "Here, have a back for your camera. I'm sad that you can't shoot with your camera yet."
Good friend to have that.
Down the line, right? So so I was like, yeah, mine's still in pieces. So I put a roll of 800 in Lomo 800 in that and shot with that, and it, you know, it's just nice to kind of like try new things. I think as well. If I had all the time in the world, I would just try, you know, so many different things. And actually, that's part of. Sorry, this feels very silly, but one of the things that I said with Patreon was like, actually, you'll get like the chance to vote on which camera and film combo I'll try this month. You know, that kind of thing. It's just nice to have that input as well. I would like to know more about what other people would like to see and what they're interested in, what they're excited about. Like I love Marina, the ones where you've done all the comparisons.
Thank you.
As well, they're fantastic. It's just so, I think it's so interesting, isn't it, to see like how different the exact same, more or less the exact same shot can look on different film stocks, you know. And it is about finding something that really works for you. So
that's basically the beauty of, you know, doing film photography. Is like for me, for example, is like for if I want to do this particular type of work, what would be the most suitable film for that, for example?
You're choosing a palette, aren't you? You're choosing
exactly. For me, the palette is super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ben
for my work, for another thing.
Sorry, Ben from Hip Shoot Film has said, "How is your Hasselblad build coming along? Are you any closer to a full one?"
The one that I have, the back is still in pieces. So I'm sorry. But I do now have the 612. Sorry, not 612. Sorry, 645, which gives you 16 shot frames on the on a 120 roll. So that's brilliant. So I actually do have something, and I took it along and I shot with it for the first time on our. When we used to be able to meet in real life.
Those heady days.
That was long time ago.
I know. It was our Sunny 16 Christmas meetup. It was our Christmas do. And we went to Oxford and so that was the last time I took it out and shot with it there.
It will be in again. We will do.
It will do. We will. Yes, that's right.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
No worries. Yeah. It's so nice to talk with you. It really has. And
sorry, I always had to go for the creative side.
No, I love it.
Yeah. You do not need to apologise for that, Marina. That's like that's why we're here, right? That is part of why we do what we do. Is there any that you're particularly loving at the moment that you want to talk about?
Sorry, say again.
Is there any film stocks and things that you are particularly enjoying at the moment that you'd like to talk about or recommend to me? Because I'm all ears.
No, it's because it's what I will recommend will sound really cliche. Like I really love to shoot. Well, Portra 400 for my work. It's because it suits my palette, so the colors that I really want to achieve. But to be honest, I've been using Kodak Color Plus 200 for maybe 6 years, and I've done all my work like with a budget film, and it feels great. That's what I mean. For me, it was that film at that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sorry for sounding a cliche, but yeah.
It doesn't matter if you. Do you know? I love my Agfa Color Vista. I've shot so much with that. I've shot so much, and it was always such a good one to chuck in the back of the camera and test out a camera with, and be like, okay, I can see if it works, and you get some interesting things that came out, and I just enjoyed being able to go. It was from the Poundland, because I don't know if you
Poundland done 12 exposure films.
So you actually the 12 exposure ones, I think, was something slightly different, but we used to have Agfa Vista for like £1, and I always just would use them as like my test roll before I put something nice in, really, shall we say. But it was great because it just gave me a chance to, get something shot. Try them out. I tend to use for colour the Portra 160, actually. So
have you ever tried the Portra Image 100?
Portra, which one? Sorry.
Portra Pro Image 100. What I said, Portra Image 100. Pro Image 100.
No, I haven't. Have you enjoyed that one?
Yeah, I've shot a roll for that. The comparison films.
Yes.
Yeah, I shot for the first time that roll, and yeah, I mean the skin tones were really good. I was well impressed by that film. So yeah, I think I would probably shoot that more often, because I haven't, tested like properly. But
it's interesting because it's one of the ones that because it was brought across only a couple of years ago, and it's designed for markets that are more humid and hotter. So it's very versatile. So it can basically survive being more humid and hotter than any of the other Kodak films. So it was designed for African markets, for East Asian markets, for South American markets. But actually, when you look at the pricing, the performance, it sits really nicely between like your golds and ultramaxes and your Portras. And actually is really, really good. I think Hamish did an article about 12 or 18 months ago, that really changed it. No, definitely. I think that's definitely on this. It's actually when you were saying about Colour Plus, I think even the gold and ultramax that's been coming through has really made me want to shoot some of those again. Especially, I don't know. I think especially at the moment when it's like, maybe that's the closest to a summer holiday we'll get, is using those films that are very, they are very bright. They are the kinds of films that our parents shot on on summer holidays. It was the colour film of the time, and it does make me very reminiscent for that. The other one that I'm just obsessed with at the moment is Metropolis, because I definitely didn't get the best out of its first two rolls, and there was some stuff in there that I loved. I could see, and actually I put one up I think this week. So I did it. It was in Oxford, actually, an Oxford photo walk with Hussein, who I think a few guys know, a London film photographer, and because I was like had that whole like it's high contrast in my head, I think I was looking for high contrast scenes to be like high contrast. And actually, they were obviously ridiculous because blown out and dark. Like, actually, when you look at the subtle, you shoot a scene that is quite subtle and quite gradiated, but the contrast pops. That's where it's gone. So I think that's the best thing about it as well. The first film will never be your best with it. I now know what I want to get out of it the second time, and again, I'm sure I'll learn from it in the first time. But it's kind of film that's interesting enough that makes me want to go down that path and try a few ones. Whereas some of them you shoot and you're like, oh, I see what would work, but I'm not that bothered. Metropolis, I want to get right.
Yeah, I really want to try it. I have not had a chance to shoot any Metropolis yet, and I've really it's got such a distinct look, hasn't it? But it doesn't feel so out there that you don't feel like you could use it. And I think sometimes that can be the case. It's like, when would I use that? I'm not sure. I did also really like what was the black and white that Hamish did recently? Was it the Phantom?
Yeah, the Lomo Phantom.
Yes,
that's not out yet. Yeah. He was given a test run.
That would be nice to try that one, definitely. And I've enjoyed the like Cinestill as well. Paul, you brought me a couple of rolls of that.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Back when we get hold of some, yeah. One of the ones that's been definitely affected by
I still have one roll.
do you?
left of that.
Oh,
I
nice,
do.
nice. Yeah, I know, it's interesting, isn't it? There's those film stocks that you sort of go back to whenever you feel just comfortable, and the ones that you want to experiment. Because I know you like Loma Creme Purple. I think is a great one where certain instances and certain occasions and events I'd want that look, but it will never be an everyday film. Whereas Metropolis, I feel, could be if I knew it, and therefore I could go to something and there's something, a portrait or a Metropolis day, I don't know, or a photo walk. That's what I want to get to. But I want to try it on medium format next. I think that'll help. Oh.
Is it being produced in medium as well?
Yep.
Yeah. And 110.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I knew it was
110.
110. Yeah.
Know that?
Yeah. No, actually, the first roll I shot was 110, and the demographer were pinging me like,
Oh,
"What do you?" So I put it on Instagram like, "Oh my god, Metropolis has just arrived. I'm gonna shoot it straight away." And then I had a photo of the 110 one with like the Helena broken.
The
And Mum
Helena,
like,
yeah.
"Why are you doing it with that?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. I'm rolling with it. I'm in the pub. It's too late."
I knew they had it in 110. I mean, that's pretty much like the ultimate lomography, isn't it? Like Metropolis in 110 is the ultimate kind
And you're
of.
like, the grain is big, the contrast is already going to be high, the details low. But again, some of the photos from that roll, and again, I was using the Halima, which worked 100% of the time, half the time. And some of the photos were amazing.
Did the flash work?
That was the problem. That was the problem. I was shooting in December, and the Halima, it looked like it would work every time, like it would charge up, the little bulb would go on, and then when you press the button, it would only work half the time.
Oh.
You'd be like, oh, that won't work.
I had that happen with one of my cameras. It literally blew up on air because we were recording Sunny 16 podcast, and one of my cameras went bang, and literally the battery had exploded and the whole camera had like I was like, what the hell is that? And it had flown off the shelf, and Aid was like, that doesn't happen. I was like, it's literally just happened and you heard it. So yeah.
Okay, so actually I'm giving the Halima too hard a time. At least it didn't explode.
Right.
And try and kill me.
I had to go and take it outside and leave it like on the brick outside.
Nice.
I was like, I'll just leave you there for a bit.
Actually, in fairness, the Halima's last resting place was, I think, my daughter got hold of it because I left it somewhere that was within toddler grasp, and within about 2 minutes she managed to break open the casing by smacking it, which again goes to show the build quality. And I sent a photo actually to PPP Repairs, being like,
"Can you do that?"
No, it's more like my daughter wants to apprentice with you. She's already got into the circuitry.
I've got as far as the like destruction stage. What's the next part of my what's the word, apprenticeship?
Yes. She can take this camera apart in seconds. The next bit is a bit slower. Okay, then it's gone 10 o'clock. We should probably wrap up for States. But thank you so much. So Rachel, let's try and wrap it up. So Patreon page, we'll definitely have the links there. Your website, is that the best place to find your photography at the moment, or Instagram? Where should people go?
Yeah, so you can go to littlevintagephotography.co.uk. It's under construction, but I have links to my gallery and to my social media from there. On Instagram as Little Vintage Photography and Little Vintage Weddings. So I've sort of like separated out my education in general and my weddings, because obviously very different client. I'm on Twitter, Vintage Photo Co, and you can find me on Etsy for my Analogue adventure kits as well.
Yes.
Awesome. We didn't really talk about that, but when we talked cyanotype, there we go. Actually, very quick pitch. What's in the adventures kits?
So you can basically make your first cyanotype, sunprint, bookmark, gift label, and a 6x4 print. So you kind of like work your way through, and a pinhole viewer, so you can see how the physics of light works as well, and do a bit of engineering.
And I bought one for my niece a couple of weeks ago, so this is a perfect way of,
kids,
again, at the moment, I'm sort of pushing the inducting family members into film photography. They're stuck in the house.
You don't need to use any chemicals at all.
No, you need just daylight and water. Everything is in there.
Britain, 50% of those are easy to get hold of.
Yeah. And I created like a little tutorial step-by-step video, and there's a password, so you can kind of like watch along with that as well. But yeah, did she enjoy it, Paul? Because obviously I was like, how's she getting on?
My brother texted me being like, I was quite intimidated by this. So I was like, I mean, he's not anywhere near film photography, so I think even cyanotype confused him as a word. But
That's why I call it sunprint.
no,
as well,
exactly. This is it.
because
But no,
she's
she loves
Yeah.
it, and again, as you say, that very real thing of even like the pinhole, be able to look and see an image. It's a very accessible way that people can.
yeah. So this is what it's like inside a camera. How cool is that? You get to see what goes on inside a pinhole camera.
Hey, I'm in.
Yeah, I got some lovely photos from Dave Shrimpton. Actually, he was working with his daughter, and he was like, it's just so nice, like seeing what people make with it.
Because there's the bookmarks, wasn't it, with the feathers and the
Exactly.
Yeah, because I send them out there into the world. I'm like, off you go, little.
Be free, be happy.
Be free and happy, and and then people make stuff with it.
So hang on. We've got through 2 hours of talking about Rachel's business, and we didn't even mention an entire arm of.
Now we're going to say about the cyanotype.
Physical production of cyanotype. So yes. All right, so we'll try this again. So
I'll come back. We'll do another one some other day.
Patreon to support the amazing work you're doing. Website to be guided everywhere else. Etsy shop for these amazing kits that, as I say, highly recommend at the moment with to use with kids to make your own bookmarks. Really lovely and creative. And if you want to get into pinhole, that's a brilliant chance. Also, don't forget to send Rachel your ideas for what you would love to do with pinhole, because you will get 2 rounds of 8
the craziest idea, the best. Yep.
Exactly. Most creative. So you're thinking, long exposures, you're thinking crazy lighting situations. Message them to Rachel. She'll decide and help you create a pinhole camera from what's in your house if needs be. Next week, we are thrilled that Matt Day is joining us on the show, which is fantastic. You will hopefully know him from his YouTube channel or Instagram. He's very kindly joining us. And I think that's pretty much it. Marina, is there anything that you want to talk about at the moment, or are you...
Nope, I think that's it.
You're very happy? You've got your question?
I'm very happy.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much. Rachel, thank you so much. You've been amazing. I love your costume change for the quiz. That was excellent. You forced us all...
That's really unexpected,
to up my game. Which is lovely. Okay then. Well, thank you so much, guys. As always, ping us if you have any questions. If you're struggling to find any of the things we've mentioned, again, just let me know. Marina know, Rachel know. We will happily guide you. And on that note, have a wonderful time. Stay safe. Shoot film. Be nice.
Yeah.
Support each other. And we will see you in a week. Thank you so much.
See you guys.